Hey, hello, you gorgeous and fabulous human beings. It's Miriam Gilbert, and we're on day 15 of 100 days of persuasion to land corporate clients. And the next 3 days, today and the next 3 days, I want to hop into something that I'm really passionate about, which is all about cognitive biases. Cognitive, what you might say? Well, don't worry, I will explain exactly what they are and why they are really, really important to understand and what to do about them when you're trying to sell to corporate clients. But let's dive in. So, cognitive biases. Really, cognitive biases are all about how the brain works. You see, they started out as a survival mechanism. Our brains are hardwired for survival. You know, that is really what our brains want to do. It wants to keep us safe, it wants to make us survive, and that is how our brains have evolved. Now, to keep us safe, we need to make decisions quickly. And that was particularly important for our ancestors. You know, in the savannah, we had to make a decision quickly, whether that was a saber-toothed tiger chasing us or just a shadow from a tree branch, you know, that was waving in the wind. So we had to be really clear and make decisions fast. And to do that, our brain has developed shortcuts. So we would think of one thing, we would see something moving in the dark, and our brain would jump straight away to the shortcut. Oh, this is a danger, this is a saber-toothed tiger, let's, run away. So these are the shortcuts, and that is exactly what cognitive biases are. Cognitive biases are shortcuts that help us to make decisions faster. They are developed in the ancient brain, and we still use them, even though we don't, rarely these days fight with a saber-toothed tiger. And the problem with cognitive bias is that just like with shortcuts in the real world, when you're driving along or you're going somewhere and you're trying to take a shortcut, sometimes you end up in the wrong place. And that's what happens with cognitive biases too. You end up making assumptions or coming to conclusions about something or behaving in ways that aren't actually that logical and rational. And that is where cognitive biases can get in the way of rational and sensible decision making. But let's not get into too much theory. Let's get into the practical aspects of what does that matter? What does that mean for you if you're trying to sell to corporate? Well, let's look into the most common biases that you will find in corporates. And these are things such as the status quo bias, loss aversion, the sunk cost fallacy, and wishful thinking. They are common biases that you actually find everywhere in everyday life. Therefore, of course, you would find them in corporates too, right? But they're in corporates, they're not just found there, they're also amplified because you have several people's biases all bouncing off each other and making each other bigger. Again, don't worry if you don't know what these individual biases are, because this is what these videos are about. I'm going to explain each one of them, what they mean, why they're important, what they look like in the real world, and how you can deal with them when you're trying to sell to corporates. So today we're going to look at the status quo bias, and this is the human tendency to favor sticking with your current situation, to avoid changing things even if your current situation isn't that great. It's a super common bias. Let me give you a few examples. For example, a business or an individual might stick with the same service provider, or you might stay in a boring job, or you might order the same meal each time you go to the same restaurant just because you know what it's like, and you're a bit worried that if you order something else you might be disappointed. There's even famous studies that show that people generally stay with the same default ringtone on their phone. Oh, I know, weird, right? These are all examples of the status quo bias, where we stick with something, don't really want to change, just because, we don't know what that change would look like, or we feel a bit uneasy, so we stick with what seems safe to us. Now, what that means when it comes to corporates is this, you see. Dealing with the status quo bias in corporate prospects is, you have to address it. You have to get them out of it, because otherwise they will not choose to work with you. They will not actually take action and work with you because that would mean a change. So the first thing you can do is you can create a jolt. So you take them out of their comfortable going along situation, even though it's not comfortable and they're having a pain, it's some form of challenge, otherwise they wouldn't be talking to you, right? But you can create a jolt, and you can do that by using surprising statistics, showing exciting case studies of things that are possible, or case studies of things that happened when people didn't change. You can even show alternative ways of doing things, whatever the challenge is that they're facing. So if you, for example, help somebody to create collaboration in teams that are located at different places, then you can show them how other organizations have maybe managed to navigate this new remote hybrid arrangement. So the first thing is you can do is you can create a jolt. The second thing you can do is you can highlight the consequences of what will happen if they don't work with you. Now, word of warning, don't overdo it. Don't push it too hard because otherwise they will get defensive. Just, show them that if they don't make a change, then they will continue to have people bickering at each other instead of having an effective team. Then they will continue missing deadlines instead of people communicating effectively. Then they will continue maybe losing their top stars because people are not engaged in work. Obviously, this depends on the topic that you're helping them with. The third thing you can do is you can create an information gap. And that is a really good way to get prospects to be curious about what you offer. It's a gap where you where you tell them something that makes them go, oh, do I know this? Actually, I want to know more. I'm going to give you some examples right now so you can see how that works in the real world. So first of all, if you you can create the situation highlighting what happens when people don't change. They can say something like, new remote managers and leaders often fall into the trap of applying best practices the same way they do in the office, but that often contributes to poor remote team performance. Well, there you go. This is what would happen if they don't work with you. A surprising statistic could be, on average, organizations lose over 17 productive days per employee per year due to sickness. That's both absence and presenteeism. And the sickness cost in the US economy alone is over 500 billion per year. And those statistics are obviously expected to be worse when they come in. They should be coming in right now for 2020. The expectation was at least 35% worse. Oh my gosh, that is terrible. And here the last one is an example of an information gap where you tell them that, but do you know the one key thing for leadership success? Obviously, you phrase that in a nice conversational way, not a sensationalist marketeer way. So these are an example of how you can address in very simple ways, just by adding a little bit of information and changing your language, deal with the status quo bias in corporate prospects. So what's next? Well, if you want to work with corporate clients, but you're not sure if they buy what you offer, or you're not sure if you have what it takes to work with clients, then I'm here to help, because I help coaches and consultants identify exactly what they can offer that corporations are desperate for, not just want it, but actually desperate for, how to package it. And that includes addressing all those status quo bias and other cognitive biases, how to find the right prospects, and how to have non-icky sales conversations so that you can land 4- and 5-figure contracts in as little as 4 to 30 days. All the while, you are making a big impact on the world because you're reaching lots of people in one go in corporates. If you are a coach who can get results for individual clients, and you want to play a bigger game, then DM me here to find out if you could sell to corporates and what your first steps should be. Or join us in the 4-part complimentary learning experience where I share all you need to know to land your first or your next corporate client in as little as 30 days. You can find the link right here. I will pop it in below as well. And I can't wait to see you in the next one 100 days of persuasion to land corporate clients. That will be day 16 when we talk about another super important cognitive